it's not uncommon for us to get death threats. People tend to want to threaten us to try and intimidate us into backing off with some of the investigations that we do, but it doesn't work. In Egypt, we were doing an undercover drug operation. One of my undercover operatives was kidnapped. He was taken prisoner by the counterfeit gang. He was compromised. We were actually fearful that he was going to be killed. He was missing for 3 days, before he turned up in a very badly beaten state. It was later discovered that the police were actually involved in the syndicate, so they were actually part of the problem. The police had found out and had done some checks on our operative. He was a young Egyptian lawyer who had only been in the job for probably a couple of years, and he had to have facial surgery. All his teeth were knocked out. You can never compromise on security when you're dealing in particular brand enforcement operations that involve industries where organised crime are very present. There is a vast difference in working in third world countries compared to first world countries like the United States. The rule of law here is very strong. The skills of the police, the skills and resources of police involved in IP protection is also very, very high. In Asia it's not. So you're dealing in a different environment. You're dealing in an environment where there's a lot more expectation from police in those countries for you as the brand owner to support them. They're investigators, so when we work with law enforcement, we are working with guys who are also investigators. So actually doing investigations, we're gathering evidence, so we're doing a very similar job. You need to have investigators on the ground in those countries that already have the pre-existing relationships. So you can't just fly in and meet with the police and then expect to have a relationship. You've got to try to, through your network of contacts, you've got to reach out to your friends in the industry and say, do you know any good investigators in this particular place? Get an investigator that's worked with law enforcement for the past 20 years and already has all the established relationships. So first of all, a brand owner has to understand what the problem is, either by doing market studies or obviously online brand protection programs is a good way of quantifying the problem. Once they've established what the problem is, that's when certain principles will apply towards the enforcement of their IP rights, and it depends then on how aggressive they are. Some clients are very aggressive. Some companies are just happy to be able to say, oh, we've reduced the numbers. It's all about the numbers, It's not really getting to the core of enforcing their brand. It's really just a reactive measure. And the problem usually won't go away, it'll just keep coming back. That's what they talk about, the whack-a-mole. You always hear this terminology at every event, the whack-a-mole. That means knocking it down and it comes back up again. Any proper brand enforcement program should include ground operations to follow up on the intelligence that is gleaned from those online stores, the online infringers. There's a massive amount of intel on the internet that's not being used.